Welcome to On the Chain with Jeff and Chip.
Hey, welcome to the Roundtable. This is Jeff, and you are here with my co-host Chip, and we have an amazing guest with us tonight on the Roundtable, Camay. You guys know her from the Twitter community, extremely active, and we really love to have you here. It's great.
Thank you.
It's awesome. It's interesting because we haven't had you on the Roundtable yet. We've seen some of your activity on Twitter, but it would be great to kind of get to know a little bit of, your background in terms of, the digital asset space. When was the first time you got actively involved or found out about digital asset? What was one of the first digital assets you invested in? What did all that look like?
So I wasn't really into digital assets. My husband was. And so he's the one who was investing in XRP, of course. And he shared it with me maybe around in October of 2018. And I started listening. And I picked it up. He had been in a year prior. Picked it up. I started investing in particular Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP. And so I'm still collecting until then. Then I jumped on Twitter like in the spring, to pick up on information and met a few people, stayed in, loved XRP, loved the community. I'm here.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So your husband was in a year prior, and that was right probably around the time that everything was going through the big boom. Right, that was the big run up. What did that look like for you? Were you watching and say, "Hey, what in the world are you doing? What are you investing in? What is this?" Or were you what? How?
I was, the person who was it's not going to do anything. I don't know why we're spending this money on this. I was that type person. And then he was still buying. It didn't matter. It didn't make a difference that I wasn't for it. But but after about a year, and I watched the money, the crypto go to the $3-4 range. I saw it. I still was not sold. I wasn't sold until I had to do my own research. I had to read because I just thought he didn't know what he was talking about. When I did read, of course, you read about Ripple and you see the team that's backing it. You see the innovation, the connection with the banks. I mean, you kind of can put 2 to 2 to get 2 plus 2 is 4. So we know that's going to pan out once I did my background.
So your husband, this is interesting. So your husband, is he still as into it as he was? I mean, is he still like full throttle now that you guys are a team going to this, or are you kind of like inched up a little bit on the more excitement level?
So I'm the social media person. So I said he was a YouTuber person. He was following DNI a lot. Oh, yeah. Following CKJ, he was following Digital Asset Investor. He was watching those back when I wasn't watching any of them. And I started watching, I fell in love with DNI. That was my first foray. I fell in love with DNI because he was better than Sean Hannity to me at that time. He was, he was giving me more insight, and I learned a lot, about
we don't want to blow up his ego too much. Huh?
I know.
Yeah. Well, everybody knows he has a show right here on the chain, right? So he's got the new Jeff, and they do that. Have you seen the deep dive? Have you watched that?
Yeah. I don't miss you all. Very rare unless you're late. Unless it's late Eastern time, like 10 or 11 o'clock, then I'm asleep. But other than that, I don't miss you all. Nice. You all are fantastic.
So your husband, so you say when he was a YouTuber, you're saying he was a fan of YouTubers. Was he actually doing anything? Was he actually putting, so he was kind of quiet on the social media scene, right? Not really.
He was one of the people watching the YouTube.
Gotcha. So kind of like now you're the big watcher, right? You kind of, because it's interesting. I remember, I remember a lot of the stuff really came out of CKJ. I remember the zoo, which is really where I met a lot of the community too, is they spun up the zoo and Kick Boy and Bones and Malpass, and they put me into a chat really early on. I got to know a lot of cool people in the community, and I look at that, I look at CKJ was encouraging a lot of people in the community to stream. He's like, yeah, Chip, you ought to just start streaming, and that's kind of how I came to it, and kind of met Jeff through the whole it was had to do with the regulations, you know, putting that video together for Congress as we did. And, you know, I remember how that came together. It's like, Jeff's like, hey, you know, he put me in a Twitter DM group, you know, direct message group. And we're talking about it. There were some other pretty notables in there. I felt like I was outclassed. I'm like, look at all these really important people in here. And then there's me. What the hell? I was like, you know, really big YouTubers. And then I said to Jeff, let's do this video. Let's do it. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, when does it do? He goes, Monday. It was like a Friday. I was like, wait a minute, what? We worked all weekend on that. Remember that, Jeff?
That was awesome. Oh my God. We pulled that together, and then, you know, we saw a lot of great synergies, you know, so that was awesome, you know, and that was funny. Yeah. 2 days on a Zoom chat editing video. That was interesting.
Well, you all were
it was
one
fun.
of the first people that I picked on that was newer, that I had not heard from my husband. You were, both of you all were the first people that I started looking at that was outside of what my husband was looking at. And I always followed you all after that.
Oh, that's great.
That's nice. Yeah, that's
Appreciate
also
that.
nice to know. And it was good where I didn't realize you'd taken such a break yourself. So you haven't streamed since October then?
Yeah, I was streaming once a week, impromptu, because of my schedule. But I will be picking back up again. My parents were here from they're snowbirds, so they came to Maryland, and they've been here for a couple months. They just left in February. I guess I just have to back up and do it again.
There you go.
Nice.
Crank
we'll
it
look
back
forward
up.
to that. That's right. Yeah. So this is great. You know, so I find, you know, when you start hearing people's stories on how they get into it, but you also have another side which is more political, and there seems to be a lot of crossover, in my opinion, between the politics and economics. You know, that's a big passion. Both are big passions of mine. But here we have the intersect of politics and digital asset. And I think this is interesting because we were just mentioning the video that Chip and I pulled together with others in the community, you know, which had to do with the Token Taxonomy Act. But one of the things that we see globally, and I just in a live stream that I did, I talked about how all these other countries are adopting and speeding up the process of adoption into these central bank digital currencies. And yet the US is still bogged down in focusing on, we got to prevent terrorists from using digital currency. Yet fiat currency is still the predominant method of transfer of money into hands of terrorists and for other illicit activities. I think that's all interesting. Now, you know, what do you think? You know, what do you see from your experience? And we were talking right before we started, you know, how some people might still perceive digital currency. And I think that's important because a lot of times we all get lost in, here's our network of people, and everyone's so, you know, fired up about it and understand it. But yet that's what 6% of the people in the US are invested in digital asset. And that's, you know, so that means 94% of the US has, you know, we don't know where they stand, you know, and I think there was a poll done, but what's your opinion from your interaction with people out there?
So MAGA, which is, you know, of course, that, you know, everybody knows what MAGA is. Okay. So when I went to MAGA, I did share that I had came from cryptocurrency, and it was a little hesitant. People, you know, because they started asking me if I wanted to join their groups. And once I, you know, where did you come from? You know, the background, because they have their own fears. And so I told them I came from cryptocurrency. They would check my old tweets, and they asked me, what is this? This Bitcoin, this XRP, you know, what's this ETH, and, you know, whatever they saw. And I shared with them there was digital currency, and that, you know, how I got into it, that it wasn't, that the people over there are, you know, they're both. They, you know, they have just the same ideas that you have. People who utilize cryptocurrency are the same type of people that you all are. They have ideas about the banking system, the global economy, everything that you all have. They have the same thing too, and concerns about their own country. And so I saw a little bit of a pushback, but I'm seeing that now decrease. I've started placing crypto-friendly people that produce content on my trains so they can see it. Sometimes they interact, they follow them. they have interacted with them and they've come back to ask me about it. One lady in particular, she's even saying she knows what Coinbase, we laugh, because she finally knows what Coinbase is. So she might purchase, she might get involved. I'm trying, because I think that they're now.
What's that?
I think they're
missing out, yeah.
But I don't like pushing it. I'm creeping it a little bit, but they're more open to it now than they used to be, because they told me they blocked them. They would block crypto people immediately. Now they don't. They follow them back.
There's a misconception, which the media definitely takes part in. The media can corrupt people's minds, you know, and it's interesting you talk about, you know, DNI or watching people on the YouTube space versus, let's say, a Sean Hannity, for instance. In my opinion, you know, I don't think that, you know, the talking heads on TV are any smarter than I am. You know, and I get fed up with, you know, listening to the garbage that they spew, because it's all opinion. It's not always based on fact, or sometimes they have access to a few more people than we might, you know, they can interview a head of state, for instance, and we can't. But everything that they talk about becomes opinionated, which is typically now the general media has turned in, instead of a news source, it's become an entertainment source, just like YouTube. Yet, in my opinion, I prefer to listen to the opinion of others, because, you know, through the YouTube channels, because this is the best. If you want to take the temperature of people's opinions on the street, you're not going to get it from watching general media, because again, the media has an agenda, and typically there's money behind that agenda. And here on YouTube, you can sort through so many people's opinions, and to me, it's a lot more interesting, you know, when you get a global opinion versus, you know, what some guy at the top of the food chain at the media companies want to project.
Absolutely. I think that was the purpose of my little talk, my real talk thing live, that I could pull people, and I didn't care what you were, if you were liberal, conservative, independent. I do want to hear from you, because you can't get the message from a CNN or MSNBC sitting around the round table with the same people saying the same things in a circle, in a vacuum, in a bubble, that I can get off of the Twitter or YouTube in the communities and get a better opinion. And exactly, that's what they did with cryptocurrency. CNN was great on. I saw it myself. I don't know if you all saw it, but I saw CNN do series of shows saying that Bitcoin or cryptocurrency is only used for illegal drugs. Do you all remember that? Because I remember.
Oh
yeah,
yeah, famously, yeah.
And it persists.
And I was going to say, Jeff, you know, this is probably the perfect opportunity to bring in one of my favorite quotes by Steve Jobs, and I think it's appropriate based on what you said. He said, you know, when you grow up, you kind of tend to be told that the world is the way it is, and your life is, just live your life inside the world. Try not to bash into the walls too much. You know, try to have a nice family life, have fun, you know, save a little money. That's a very limited life. Life can be much broader once you discover one simple fact. Everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you. You can change it, you can influence it. And once you learn that, you'll never be the same again. And that, to me, is one of the greatest quotes. And it's what you touched upon. So I was thinking, wait a minute, Jeff's getting into Steve Jobs quotes over here. What's going on? And he's absolutely right. It's like, you know, you think about it. You look at people in this, you know, in our community, like XRP, and, you know, and there's some people outside the XRP community, but I think Jeff is spot on. Look at you talked about some of the YouTubers. One of the greatest things about creating content is you start learning about it. You know, it's like you have to learn as you're doing. We're all learning together. You know, you watch a jungle video and all of a sudden you want to just go blow your whole entire paycheck on cryptocurrency, right? Because it gets you jazzed up. You're like, yeah, you know, Romans, you know, with swords, you know, you get all excited. I get excited, man. Sometimes I can't watch it because it gets me super excited about it. You watch people in our community, you know, or DNI, you know, DNI like takes things apart and you know, he makes broad statements and stuff, but there's nobody out there doing that. And then, you know, and even on this channel, you know, you have someone like Jerry Hall, who's interviewing some of the influencers out there, you know, some big minds and thought creators, you know, and then even, you know, I watched Jeff's video the other night when he was streaming. It's like, there's always something to be learned when he went off on the whole, you know, and Jeff gets on a roll, man. It's always fun to watch because when he was on. He goes, "I'm only gonna stream for a half hour." I'm like, "Well, you missed that by just that much."
Just by 30 minutes.
Yeah, 30 minutes or so.
That's it. Yeah. You know what's interesting? I think it was Sean Thompson. This was yesterday on Rain Stream. Brought up an interesting point, and he said that when he invested in XRP, after that, I think it was Sean said that, and then after he had to then go and learn about the financial system. And one of the things that I talk about a lot, that I've brought up multiple times anyways, is that I see people that are invested that could potentially be invested in a market for their first time, meaning that, they may or may not have had a 401k retirement savings account, but I even see 401k, sometimes people put those on autopilot, and you still have no understanding of what that means, and then, and so most people go through their daily lives and see the stock market on the news. Maybe it pops up, but they've never interacted in any way, shape, or form with investing. And now people are getting this opportunity through the digital asset space, through crypto, to invest. And once you start investing and you start learning about it, now all of a sudden it's like, wow, look at all this stuff that it's impacting. Now we're talking about, we're talking about the change of an entire financial system, the structures globally. It impacts, and the impact that it's going to have, not just on the national level, at the highest points, but even down to the individual. And that to me it's so awe-inspiring, because to see so many people getting engaged in taking personal responsibility for their lives, and being able to do so through this investment is amazing.
And we're still early. We're still early. So the people who don't know about it, they can still get in, they can still get the information, they can still make their choices. They should choose XRP. I don't say they should choose it, but let's say that you bring it to them. It's so early in, there's so much information. This would be the great time to do it, because they probably have not been into many different investment opportunities. This is the greatest opportunity of our lifetime.
Yeah. Here's a statement. I pulled this article up. This was on the Daily Hodl from March 6th. So this was yesterday. And the title of this article, I think it's interesting because it's kind of appropriate, for what we're talking about. But the Coinbase CEO says that Bitcoin may lose cryptocurrency race to the altcoins. And then they get into the why of it. And, one of the things that he brought out, he compares what Bitcoin was to, let's say, a Netscape, back in the day, solving different problems in the early days of dial-up internet. And it was interesting here because he says here, Bitcoin may be surpassed by other digital coins as the crypto industry evolves into maturity. And then they go into a couple of tweets that he put out there. But essentially, in their summary, Armstrong highlights the parallels between the early internet and cryptocurrency. He says challenges that early internet developers faced are comparable to those that hound today's young crypto industry. And he goes on and on and on, with some of these tweets that are a little more technical, but I think, the point, is that we're bringing up XRP. We talk about XRP. The entire market, the entire space started with Bitcoin, but yet it is now spawned into so much more. And we see what Ripple is doing with a real world utility based on the blockchain with cross-border payments. And really, it's the only one in the space right now. There's others. You're starting to see what's happening in the Ethereum space and how they're building different platforms on it. And I think that's going to continue to grow and build. And the more videos I watch on that subject, it's really, really interesting that it's not just about it's not all about these cross-border payment transactions. The industry is so wide, it's so broad. And I think it's something you brought up in the beginning too, in terms of what you were invested in, and everyone has their focus, and say, hey, these are going to be the core group of products that still are going to, build into something. And, we still have to also, and this is through the individual level of education as well. If we focused and just got our information from general media, I think we'd all have missed the boat a long time ago. But it's interesting, right? I mean, it's really impressive what's going on.
Absolutely. You mentioned Bitcoin. It's one of my top investments. I have to throw it out there. My husband was really into Ripple and XRP, and I'm the one who pushed a little bit with Bitcoin. I'm also the one that pushed in with Ethereum. And I feel like, I have these arguments all the time with people in the community. I'm not trying to say don't have XRP, but I'm saying get some Bitcoin and some Ethereum. Why not cover? It's your opportunity to cover all bases. Wouldn't you think?
It's good to be diversified.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't go wrong. I don't think you can go wrong. I actually really love what's going on in the Ethereum space, blockchain space, how they're building on it. Let's see what happens this July. But I have to say, I'm amazed. There's a really amazing newsletter, because one of the things I look at is that when you look at crypto, it's like it's predominantly a lot of men, especially out there. So it's always great to have really smart, intelligent women who, and it seems almost like it's a small. I think there's probably more women, because I think at the end of the day, let's face it, women are a lot smarter than men. And they're probably just lower. They're probably just keeping it down low, right? They're probably just not out there in the community. They're not on Twitter. They're not, maybe on YouTube and consuming that. But, Jeff and I look at the stats on the, YouTube will give you just a plethora of stats. Like, they'll tell you everything. And you look at the bar chart. It's like men to women. It's like, it says 100, even though we're like, there's women in there, but it's so predominant. And there are some really amazing women that we're hoping to get on the show.
Oh yeah, you got SG.
Yeah, SG's like, it's good that she started streaming again. Since really George started streaming, which is awesome. She was took a little hiatus. Who else? Are there any other women in the space that you like?
Boo
Boo, yeah.
And Airy, Crypto Airy, but I haven't seen any more. Right? Is that it?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. There's some really good stuff going on outside of it. Well, I would say outside of XRP community, but I think for the community. Jeff, are you aware of any? I mean, outside of Crypto Eddie, are you aware of some other, women
that have been streaming? No, I see. There's a lot of interaction, in the chats on Twitter, and I think that's important. We see what's going on over in Coil, with Patricia, and so there's definitely interaction within the community, just not necessarily streaming on the YouTube space. So. So that I think it's good, but it's funny, what Chip said, it's like, 99.4% men and like 0.6% women, or sometimes it's 100%. And I said, how can it be 100%? I know for a fact in our chat, we have, a group of people, we've got Connie, that's always in our chats. We've got Tina Halls a lot, is in our chats. We see Camay in our chats. We see so many people in our chats, and yet, the Google statistics are off. But I also look at it from a perspective. It's how people register on YouTube. So you don't have to give them all your personal stats either. You can leave certain things out, I believe. I could be mistaken, but I think you have a choice,
Well,
and
that's
so,
true, Jeff.
So, people could go in and just keep it neutral, and that way Google has no idea.
And I was gonna say too, when you see some of these other women like Patricia C, who's she's done some pretty nice interviews too, and her channel really should have grown a lot more. I mean, she's done some really powerful interviews with some really important people in the space, and she's also a big promoter of the Coil community, which I love and partake in, with the blog. And I've enjoyed writing again. It's been weird. I always look at everybody else's stuff and go, man, this is so solid. And then I'm like writing a story about, don't get mad, throw, poop at them. I'm like, that's a weird sort of, it's just so underrated. I'm like, and then, like Patty B is another big personality. So there are a lot of personalities and women out there. And it's unfortunate. I like to see a little bit more of that, because, otherwise just like, it's what kind of keeps it interesting. But there's, in the DeFi space, there's a really great newsletter that I would recommend everybody subscribe to. If you really want to see what's going on in DeFi, Camilla Russo, she puts together this newsletter called The Defiance, or The Defiant rather, and it's a great one. Man, the content she's generating and writing up is on a really phenomenal level. And I mean, I'm hearing about projects. Usually we hear the news and what people are writing about in some of these trades. The normal stuff, the top three mostly, and then once in a while you get a story about Sonny Liu. You might hear something about Justin Sun. He seems to be a big personality out there, and that might be a good sort of a shift for us to talk about some latest things what's happened in that community when we saw somewhat of a attempt at a takeover with Steam. So I don't think, when we look at what Justin Sun going after, hey, I'm going to go ahead and soak up Steam it, right? He didn't do his homework. Like you talked about this before, Camay. Doing your homework. What did he miss there?
The voting power of the Steam community, they were able to take over and take their power back from him so that he could not continue on. I guess he was getting ready to start doing his normal, like he did BTT, his pump and dump, changing prices, and they just stopped him. He couldn't do anything, and they took their project back from him, which is a good thing.
Yeah, but Jeff, did you find it odd that he sort of enlisted the help of some powerful exchanges out there to sort of like kind of partake in this?
I was a little bit, shocked that he was able to do that, that he came to the exchanges and he approached Binance. I know Binance threw their voting power behind it, and then they retracted because the Binance community spoke out and said, what are you doing? But I think, when we look at projects and you look at a project like Tron, and the way he started up, I still don't see any real world building going on, and it's interesting. So there was a huge spike in investment, when the Tron digital asset rolled out, and people were investing in it, and there was a ton of hype behind it because he was going to revolutionize the way video media was managed and handled online in a decentralized mechanism. Yet there's never been anything from them. Tron has not rolled anything out. And I gravitated to that in the early days when I was learning about everything. And that's one of the projects I invested in, and I still have some Tron digital asset. But the problem was it ramped up with everything else, crashed back down. I didn't put a ton into it. So I'm like, whatever, I'll hold on to it, but the more I saw about it, I said, what, this is it's almost like a Ponzi scheme, and, I have a lot of concern about companies out of China. I don't hold back about, my opinion on certain companies over in China. They have a certain structure on how they do things. And many times they create the appearance of a major company. A lot of times they're just copying what other people do. And I think that was one of the major issues, is that I believe it was Tron when they rolled out, I think their white paper was copied. And then he had to prove that his white paper wasn't copied, that it was real. And so there was a lot of controversy over that. And, but that's like this trend within a lot of Chinese companies, is that all they do is they just copy what someone else does. They roll it out, they copy their features, they copy their specs, they make it look like they actually have that product, but there's a big hole in the middle. And it's like a big donut. It's almost like and so without the core of the product, you've got nothing, and so what he was able to do that's interesting in this scenario, and I don't know, maybe there is some platform there at somehow, but they raised so much money, and then they were able to leverage that to push their weight around to do other things, and so I'm still waiting for their core project. I don't know if you guys have seen anything.
No, he just comes out with another coin, another token, right? So he did Wink, he did BTT, Steam it probably is going to have another project off of it. He's probably going to change the platform again. That's how he makes his money, I think. It looks like how he makes his money. A lot of the Chinese tokens do.
Yeah, they're just moving things around. Right?
I lost so sight of what the original Tron originally had a use case.
Gaming, sports. Was it something like that? Sports, betting?
I don't remember. It's probably a bunch of them. I mean, Jeff, what was the original sort of a use case for Tron?
So that's what I thought. The original use case was they were going to take on the Netflixes of the Netflix of the world in a decentralized platform to have video content and audio, content in this decentralized space, but but then we lost complete sight of that. They were supposed to change that protocol. I don't know. I mean, nothing happened. It just seems to be a dead project at this point. I don't know. It's really bizarre. Really, really bizarre, and so, you think about that, you think about what their impact is, the amounts of money that they were able to take. So projects like that can also create, some hesitancy within the mainstream, when we want these bigger companies to start investing and whatnot. Yet, so you have all these side projects, but stuff like that happens in fiat all the time too. On my live stream, I was talking about that major, hundreds of millions of dollars funneled through this guy from Azerbaijan, and he's the head of a bank, and he had a whole team and network of people out there that were moving money for like 15 years, and they were buying properties and, multi-million dollar properties, private jets, all this stuff. And it was all money they were siphoning from the bank, and somehow moving around, so stuff like that happens. So that's where we know Deutsche Bank got caught up. Wells Fargo just got caught up in like billions of dollars in fraud. All of these major banks get caught up, but they get fined, penalized, and then they move on with their life. And so, in the crypto space, and going back to what you said before, I think it's interesting, that there's this negative perception of what crypto is. And we just saw that even in that latest Treasury Department of Treasury announcement that they put out on cryptocurrency, that Mnuchin was saying that their primary objective is to defend the security of our currency and economy of the U.S., which makes sense. But at the same time, he also wants to make sure that it doesn't get used for nefarious purpose, and there's this interesting, issue at that point then, because we know fiat currency is the mechanism. When you get into blockchain, there's a footprint that's automatically documented for life in the blockchain, and you can follow that trail back. And there's organizations in the security space that do follow those trails back and can start connecting dots. It's not, it's not an invisible footprint like they're trying to make it sound.
That's correct. And I'm gonna have to keep that one in mind. I'm so busy defending, and I'm not bringing that up. Because you can bring that up to third parties without forcing it down their throat when I'm speaking to them. Not that I want them to get into. They don't have to. I just want you to be more open-minded, because you might miss the boat, so to speak. So yeah, I'm going to bring that up too. That they use fiat, and fiat we know is used for nefarious things all the time. And blockchain would be much more safer, much more transparent.
That's true. Sometimes if you do miss the boat, you get a little speedboat, and then you got to go and I'm going to actually write a blog post about this there's a story where you miss the boat. You can actually get a speedboat. You can actually catch up to the larger boat. But Jeff, something occurred to me as you were saying about the banks. You look at the rap sheet on these guys, and, it's so funny how we have KYC, know your customer. We got to sign up, give us your blood, type and your social security number, and, make sure where you live. I think they need to institute something for the banks called KYT, which is know your terrorist, right? Or know your KYML, know your money launderer, right? Because they're like the biggest offenders. We always hear, and this is something that plays into your point from earlier. They always talk about, you have to be really good about. It's like, well, you guys were funding terrorism. By the way, you were laundering money. But they're worried about us laundering money, right? They're worried about little guys, little people. We're just like hanging out buying crypto. Right. Meanwhile, you look at the fines. Wells Fargo is a billion something fines, and it's like, they're like, no big deal. We're cool. That's not a problem. We'll be fine with that.
Well, the bank's like, hey, we got other people's money. We can pay for it. It's not.
Right. Well, they're not really solvent if you really look at it. I mean, I always looked at this, like, what if you had a cash call? What if everybody wanted their fiat currency back? Like, everyone just like, I'm taking all my fiat out of the bank. Well, there's not enough money in the system for, there's this much money, and then this is what physical money is available, right? Everybody's over leveraged. It's a pretty sad state of affairs. And when you start looking underneath the hood a little bit, you get a little nervous, because I'm like, wow, this doesn't look so good, right? It doesn't play so well. You got this quantitative easing going on. And one of the things that I love about what's happening with our economy right now is like the same numbers other presidents, other administrations have used to say, look at how good we're doing. We're doing awesome. So I wonder about that. What do you think's in store for 2020, Camay, as far as, we've got, it looks like we're down to 2 presidential hopefuls, with Bernie Sanders, Bloomberg's out, Buttigieg. That was Trump. I was Trump trying to learn. It took Trump like a year to finally learn how to say that. And then of course you have Joe Biden. So what do you see happening on that side, just out of curiosity?
So I already had my batch. I had my batch that they were going to give it to Joe Biden. I didn't understand what was going on with that for a minute. It looks like he was asleep or whatever. But I knew they were going to give it to him, and they're still going to give it to him. There is no way in the world that the Democrat machine is going to let Bernie Sanders ever be the Democratic nominee.
What are they afraid of, though? Seriously, because when I look at the platforms, they're really not too different. When someone says on the stage, "Hey, would you do this?" and everyone's like raising their hand, "Hey, what about this? Yeah, what about sacrificing babies at an altar?" They're like, "Ooh," they can't wait to get their hand up, right?
I think because at the end of the day, they are a corporation. They've already, I'm using that word loosely. They've already, there's favors. We know that, right? There's favors, there's money that we don't know anything, political favors, money, ties to other countries. They have already, Bernie's probably not involved with all of that because he's not in the inner loop. Biden is. Bernie's in the loop, but he's not in the inner loop.
Well, Bernie's been in Congress for 30 years, so 29 years. The best thing that Bloomberg ever said to him was like, "Hey, you guys write the laws." He goes, "Oh, but billionaires and millionaires." Well, remember, last time he was running, before he was a millionaire, he was railing against the millionaires. Now that he's a millionaire, all of a sudden he started ripping on the billionaires, right? I don't get too close to home.
That's
Jeff,
right.
what's your take on all this?
When you have 3 homes and you have a house on the beach, and according to Bernie Sanders, everybody has a house in the mountains. Where is he? In Vermont, Massachusetts? I don't even know where the guy lives anymore. But it's just funny. I was like, oh, everybody has 3 houses. Yeah, that's nice to know. Obviously when you're worth millions, then yes, everybody has 3 houses. But the average person doesn't. It's a conflict. And it's funny though is the stupid people that follow Bernie Sanders because I say that not even loosely at that point. Wow, because Jeff. Because you can easily educate yourself on socialism. And there's no such thing as this democratic socialism that's different. If you go down and listen to what Chavez used to talk about, and Chavez used to talk about democratic socialism. It didn't work out so well for Venezuela. And socialism is socialism, pure and simple. But the one thing that always resonates, and I don't know if we have any socialists following our show, but maybe they'll learn something. The thing that always resonates is that the top echelon in a socialist hierarchy are always wealthy. The rest of the people aren't, and it's been that way throughout history. And there'll be no difference whatsoever if socialism took root in the United States. Here we do have an elite mechanism, but the thing is that anybody from the bottom can go to the top, and it's been proven over and over and over and over again. And that's why people from around the world flock to the United States. Right. Because there is American exceptionalism, and everybody wants a part of that exceptionalism because it's easy to start a business here. It's easy to rise to the top. It's about how much effort and time you want to put into it. And if you're exceptional, you'll get there. It's like an athlete. An athlete, if he's an exceptional basketball player, he's going to find his way he's going to make it all the way up. What's that?
Or she. I want to make sure you use the right proper pronouns here.
She. He or she.
Or non-binary.
I'm using
the a non-binary athlete. Let's be fair here.
But Jeff, I was like that preach. I could take that clip and put it over on MAGA. They love it. That right there is what we're talking about. Because liberalism would suggest that you can't make it. That you need the government. You need the system. No, you don't. And we've been told this, by the Democrats. I don't want to get all, but you've been telling us forever that we can't make it. Okay,
what's a mindset?
Right, it's a mindset. Yes, you can. You can do anything you want to do. The only thing that's holding you back is you, and that's it.
That's right. Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah. Have you always been conservative, or did you grow up in an environment that was more Democrat?
So I grew up in a Democratic household. I changed back in 2000 when
Okay.
Bush and Gore. I changed. I switched over. Real simple story is I just went. I was pregnant with my second child, and I got the whole school system had. I was a teacher. I was a math teacher. The school system had fired the teachers because the superintendent had stolen the money. Now this was a story. It was all over the county. So I went to go get food stamps, right? And aid, because I figured, I've been putting in the system, I could go get it until I could find me another job. I'm pregnant, I have a kid, I was married, but my husband was gone. So I was just us. They didn't give me anything, told me I can go work. Well, I was pregnant. Back in the day, you couldn't get a job as a teacher already pregnant. It was noticeably pregnant. They weren't going to hire me. So I couldn't find the job. Luckily, the system hired me back. But I started looking at that. I was like, who are you giving the food stamps to? The aid to? Who are the healthcare to? I was looking to see that, and that just opened my eyes, and no one could explain it to me because I had been paying in the system since, finishing from college. And I've been putting my time in. I should have been able to get some assistance because that's what it's for. It's not for a lifetime. It was for assistance, and they didn't give it to me, and that made me start looking and opening my eyes to what the Democrats were saying, what they were putting in place, and who they were giving it to. And there's that snowball. Saying
Boom.
Right.
Off to the races, right?
I woke up.
So it's safe to assume that back in the day, you were maybe a Clinton supporter, right? If you would have maybe voted for Clinton. And so I'm guessing that you probably didn't vote for the other Clinton that was running last time.
Not, absolutely not. Nope.
Okay, good assumption. I do my homework here. I like pay attention a little bit, kind of put two and two together, can kind of connect those dots. All right, so this is a good pathway. So do you actually physically switch parties? You kind of just start seeing a mindset switch? Do you now switch parties officially? And what's the next step of that? 2000, you decide, hey, I'm going to look at this another way. And so what's the evolution from, let's say, 2000 to 2020, the last 20 years? What did that look like?
Well, even then we, of course, I was married to a military, my husband's military. I saw I was there for that, the war, and I was supportive of it, Things have changed, hindsight's 2020, but things have changed, but I was behind George Bush, so of course that was another 8 year of a battle. Obama came in what was that, 2006? 2006, 2008?
2008.
2008, yeah.
When he came in, I did vote for him. I switched back. I didn't switch out. I just voted for him. I held my nose and I pushed the button because, of course, I wanted to see the first Black president. And that came with identity politics. I don't care who it is nowadays. I don't care who they put out there because they'll do this again. Obama had nothing to do with that. That was part of this, the Democrat machine. And I made a mistake. I didn't vote for him the second time. I realized that. I made a mistake, so I didn't vote for him. I didn't vote for Romney. I just didn't vote. And then Trump came down that escalator, and I was on board. He started saying what I was thinking. Not only was I thinking that, Americans don't want to admit to it, but I heard people, Democrats, saying the same things. And nobody was saying anything out loud. He was. And so he started speaking what I was thinking. And not just me, a whole bunch of Americans were thinking that we did need to close our borders. We did need to close our borders. We did need to be more about America first. And he's been there. He's been doing everything he said he's doing.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest surprise for me is like any politician, look, you're like, yeah, you go out there and rah, and I'm going to do this and I'm going to cure polio. I already cured polio, but where did that come from? I don't know. It's stuck in my brain somewhere. But I cure cancer. I'm going to do this, all these things, right? And when you look at it on its face, you're like, you almost kind of like feel like, it's a pretty big thing to do. You kiss babies, you go around there, you just like rah. And one of the things that I saw early on is that with Obama was, I remember when he spoke, I think it was at the 2004, he had spoken somewhere, and I texted a friend, and I'm like, this guy's going to be president. I go,
okay.
It was just an amazing speech. I go, he's going to be president. He has a charisma, he has everything going for him. It was funny when he first was elected in his first term, I got that text back from that buddy, and he goes, you called that one. I was like, yeah, I guess I did. I kind of called that. He goes, you were the one texting me. I didn't know who this guy was, just some senator. But one of the things that I look at, that if you look, it's pervasive. You know, Clinton had this thing going on. Bush was kind of a default thing. Bush was an oddity. You know, I still don't know. I'm not going to go there, but with Obama, one of the things that was great about Obama was his inclusive, right? He was like, we're going to do this, you know, hope and change. And people were ready for hope and change. People were tired of everything, you know?
Well, we had 8 years of war and
right.
You know,
people were burned out, and there's like, so it was like about we, and that was the one thing that Trump, I think, capitalized on. And this is why Romney and McCain were just pathetic candidates. I mean, I don't think anybody was going to beat Obama anyway. There was really nobody, but they were. And the thing about Hillary Clinton, when she was talking about me, we went to her website. It was like a timeline. It was like you scroll for 3 days about I did this and I saved this child, and I was like, oh, me. Which is like Klobuchar was I, right? So you look at this entire sort of like list, and where you know, Trump had learned a lot, I think, whether people want to admit or not, from what Obama did. Obama was we're going to do this. We're about this. We, the people. That was one of the things that I thought was one of the strong points about Obama when he was talking about we're going to go do this. We're going to, and it brought people in. And I felt like that's a lot of what Trump sort of leveraged as well, is that, you know, and I've always been very strong on the fact that, you know, I'm married to someone who didn't grow up in this country. I'm married to somebody who came here legally. And I think the argument's always skewed. I'm all for immigration. I believe that the U.S. offers a lot, but let's bring, like other countries like Australia, let's bring some great people into the country. You know, I had a friend who's from Brazil, and he famously said this when he came in, he was always grilled, and he came in here and he had to file his paperwork. And he said, you know, one time he actually almost got kicked out because he told one of the immigration officials, he said, you know the mistake I made? And the guy's like, what is it? He goes, my mistake is I came by plane. He goes, I should have walked across the border. Things would have been a lot easier for me. He goes, if I'd come by land, right? He goes, my big mistake was I took a plane. He goes, I was stupid. I should have came by boat. I should have walked across the border. Everything would have been rosy for me. You know, and it was like, and the guy really got angry at him, but you think about it, right?
It would be easy just to run the border.
That's it. You brought up something interesting, and you know, not to bring this entire end of our segment for the roundtable into a political conversation, but I think it's important.
We did that, Jeff.
Did we? No, I didn't realize, but yeah, but I think it's important. People are so worried about talking politics. There was a period of time where you could have a conversation with people, just like in the crypto space. You know, people, like you were saying, they're like, oh my God, I'm not going to talk about crypto. I don't want I'm going to block anybody that's associated with cryptocurrency because, you know, it's all about illegal, illicit activity. That's what it's being used for. And in politics, it used to be you could have a conversation with people. Lately, and this is really dangerous, you know, we've entered a phase, and we bring up Obama, and Obama, you know, coalesced around identity politics, which brought us into a phase, and it might have happened in the past too, you know, but it brought us into a time of you know, people voting strictly based on identity of the individual. You know, I remember who was I forget the at the time, I can't remember who he was, but one of the Jewish candidates that was running.
Oh,
I can't remember who he was. Right? He was from. Yeah, I can't remember his name. I don't know. I can't. You know. But anyhow. So someone had asked me, "Oh, are you going to vote for him? You know, he could be, you know, the first Jewish, you know, president or vice president." Lieberman, right? Yeah. Lieberman. You know, and I said, no, I'm not going to. I mean, that's insane. You know, why would I vote based on identity? You know, I want to know what they're going to do for the country and what they stand for. And what I saw, I volunteered at one of the polls during the first election, you know, with Obama. And what terrified me the most at that point in time is that I saw people coming to the polls voting only for Obama and that had never voted before. And they were mostly young people. One after another, after another, after another. They came to the voting precinct, and I said, hey, it's good that they're getting actively involved. The problem was that most people that were coming there to vote spent, let's say, 10 minutes voting, because they had to read through all the different amendments, and there are other people to vote for. These kids came in, right? They came in, stood in line, went in, and went out. They were in the voting booth for less than a minute because the only person's name they checked off was Obama, and that's it. They didn't vote for anything else. So what that told me was, A, they're not actively educated about what this means for the country. They're not taking any direct personal responsibility to figure out that voting is really, is really more important, that there's more going on. It's not just about, we got to get Obama in, and and so you could see that they had no idea, what any of that meant, and so they were just going there to vote for Obama and left. And then, when he got elected the next time, I think you started to see that trend dissipate somewhat, because he wasn't able to coalesce the people. By the time, Hillary was running, none of those people were going to vote for Hillary Clinton, because there's no identification, right?
Okay. Right. Even though she was a female, she tried to roll off of that. That wasn't going to work either, because all I saw was another continuation, or possibly worse, of the Obama era administration. I didn't see anything else, just rolling on.
Yeah, and it's dangerous. I mean, it's to the point where, we never saw, I always saw, race relation in the United States, ever since I moved back to the U.S. when I was younger. I always saw that, there was, everybody, seemed to get along. There was not a lot of tension. There were certain areas that they were, and I've experienced it firsthand. I've seen it. I've seen anti-Semitism firsthand. I've seen, direct racism on all sides firsthand, whether it's, white, black, Asian, Hispanic, you see it. I mean, when you get into groups of people, there's going to be, certain tension and emotion, mainly because there's a misunderstanding of people's, the cultural dynamics, and I think that that's problematic. And the Democratic machine is so coalesced, and they understand that dynamic very, very well. The Republicans, not so much. It wasn't until Trump that you see the Republicans coalescing and pulling groups of people together from all walks of life. I mean, there are always people involved. I'm not saying that it wasn't, but now you're getting Democrats fleeing the Democratic Party coming over to Trump. You have independents. You have all these people flocking to the Trump banner, mainly because, there's more to it, but the Democrats have prayed, and I know, this is going to maybe upset some people out there listening, because it's, but my point is that, the Democrats, and you just have to go back and look at their history of how they've done this, but they've preyed on the Jewish community for years, so when Jews came over here after the Holocaust, and they were on, boats, after they had the groups that were turned away from the U.S. and sent back to Germany. But then, once the war was over and they're bringing them in, the Democrats jumped on that at Ellis Island, registering people to vote and comparing the Republicans to Nazi Germany. And that's exactly what they did. So it ingrained in the minds of the Jews that were coming over that you have to be a Democrat. And so the Democrats registered, or the Jews registered as Democrats. But again, they were registering them to vote as they were coming through immigration. So there's a major issue with that, but they identify, they gravitated, the Democratic Party gravitated to identity politics at that time. They've taken advantage of the black community for I don't know how many years. And I see so many similarities between the black community and the Jewish community that the Democrat Party is just used and abused, taken advantage, and it's horrible. And now they're doing the same thing with the Hispanic community. And then they've moved, and now they're going to the illegal community. And then and this is what they do, and they prey on those communities, because typically, there's a misunderstanding, but they've done an amazing job of saying, hey, the Republicans are racist and they're evil and they're going to take advantage of you. And then when you look at it, it's the exact opposite. The Democrats are racist. The Democrats are the ones taking advantage of those groups, you know? And so, you know, so anyone who tries to, you know, to refute this, go to the walkaway movement, you know, go to Blexit, you know, go to Jexit, you know, so you have the black groups that are fleeing. You've got the walkaway are the Democrats, and you've got Jexit, which are the Jewish groups that are fleeing the Democrat Party. Just go to those individuals and ask them, why are they fleeing the Democrat Party and coalescing under this banner with, you know, just getting away and voting for Trump. And then you start to see the core root of the problem. You know, and it's amazing to me, you know, because now you see the same, you know, hype and misinformation being spread about the digital asset space and the blockchain and the foot dragging and the games and all of this. It's interesting, you know, but the one thing that always stands out is American exceptionalism. You know, is that we're always going to somehow get above and beyond it. And when people come together, it's the best thing.
I'm going to leave that one right there, because if I had a clip, I would roll with this. Listen, you have broke that down just like, because what you've said, a lot of people agree with you, Jeff.
Well, I'll tell you, there's a lot of people right now in the chat that are going crazy and active. I'll tell you that. And might be a good time to kind of get out of there. I think that was really well said. And
yes, it was.
And, yeah, well said. But I just want to let people drive me crazy. They're like, oh, Jeff, you're a Republican. I'm like, I don't like most Republicans. So I am an independent. I have been an independent for more than 20 years. I don't like most Republicans. I find them to be dirty punks that I want to punch in the face, because they're one of the things that I appreciate so much about Dems, and I'll tell you this, and is that they stick together, man. They stick together. They fight the good fight. They go down together. Oh, no, it's like, you know, remember it used to be the gotcha stuff. It would be like, hey, they would interview somebody about like the passing a new bill to a Republican, and then the media would say like, well, so-and-so just said this. What do you think? It's like, well, what do you mean? What do I think? Do you agree with it? Do you condemn it? You know, they would be like, do you condemn? Well, and they're like, then all of a sudden that person was guilty by association because they didn't officially condemn it. And so now you see the craziness that goes on. And the reason a guy like Bernie Sanders can't win is he's not a fighter. He's a talker. Oh, we're going to do this, and we're going to have so many times, and I love socialist democratic. So, and meanwhile, he's on a stage where he can hammer Biden, right? We're going to see. But I think it'd be real nice to him. Hello, Joe, how you doing? Yeah, well, Joe said this, and Joe said that. And Joe, meanwhile, won't know where he's at. Joe, you're on planet Earth. Oh, gosh, I'm sorry. Who knew that? I mean,
they switched on me over here.
They switched on me. My God,
so
yesterday I was on Mars.
Sad.
You know,
it's really sad that they're putting him up there.
But he's a sacrificial lamb, though. They always roll out the sacrificial lambs. You know, that's what Romney was. You know, and by the way, I think as we get out of here, I was going to say something, but I'm gonna hold off on it because, man, we'll be talking all day here. I think we're coming up on an hour.
Yeah, this is an hour. This was an awesome chat. This was great. It
was really good.
Camay, we're gonna have you back on. You're awesome.
I'd love to come back.
Yeah, it was really a lot of fun, and there's just like always, you know, we have topics and then we get off on our little grooves. But thank you for coming on. It's really great. You know, it's really good how you promote, how you've been, and it's good to see you start streaming again too. But I love that fact that we need more, you know, smart, strong women in the community, and I hope more people kind of come in. I think they're there. They're just like fringes around the, you know, and I love what's happening in Coil. I see a lot of amazing bloggers. You know, you see Danny Torres, you see Patty B, you see Patty C. There's a lot of just amazing in that whole Coil community. Some really strong women, because, you know, Danny Torres, another big one who's, you know, kind of in the community writing about stuff. So really great to have you on the show. You know, we'll have to have you back.
I appreciate it. I'm going to pick up on that too, to say that I'm going, even when I start live streaming, some of these Coil people are liberals, liberal ladies. And I think I would love to have them on there and hear their voice, because their voice is not being heard.
Right on.
I would love to see that. That would be awesome. I would love to see you interviewing people and talk. That would be awesome.
That'd be great. I appreciate you all having me on your show. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was great. So Jeff, Chip, take us out of here.
Well, I just want to say, guys, you always can go, and I've said this all the time, but you want to go down there, right? Because what did you agree with tonight? What did you vehemently disagree with? What did we say that just got under your skin and punched you in the face? You know the place to do that? The chat's awesome. The chat's awesome, but you got to go down there. You got to leave that comment, right? Because what we're starting to do is we're starting to bounce off of that. You leave that comment down there, and then it pops up in the future. And, you know, listen, agree, disagree. What did you like? What didn't you like? What should we be doing? You don't like my glasses. You know, what's wrong with, you don't like Jeff's stairs back there, you know, because they're hard to clean with the Swiffer. Someone brought that up the other day, which is true. It's all true. But, you know, anyways, you can go to onthechain.io or learn more about the contributors here. And that's it. I really appreciate you being here. You're what makes the community, you bringing, you know, coming and supporting us and growing and learning together. And that's it, Jeff. That's all I have.
That's it. That's all you got. What about onthechain.io?
I said onthechain.io.
Oh, I missed that. I was focusing on the staircase.
I know. Camay, go ahead and talk about a little about onthechain.io. So where can people go to learn more about this channel?
You were also on Coil. You're also
right, exactly. Coil. Coil's another big one you can go to, and you know we usually put the after show, but we're kind of pressed on time today, so I don't know. We'll get an after show in today because I know we're gonna record another after show. I think just with Camay, if she agrees. Yeah, we can come back and record something. That'd be awesome.
Yes, absolutely.
That'd be really great. I think.
Thank you. I will.
That'd be great. So, all right, I guess that's it. You know, I want to say we're out of here.
We are out of here, man.
We are out of here. All right. See ya.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.